Welcome back. I promised I wanted to ask you, there's a really interesting question here about if we're going to change the mining sector, we're going to move from unskilled to more skilled, upgrade skills, we're going to change the whole nature of it. Do you accept that?
Yes, that's a critical component of transformation. Upskilling, upward mobility of the workforce.
Can it change the whole nature of your employment force?
I think it might not change fundamentally, but it can ensure that skilled employees actually benefit. Also, remember, one of the areas which Social and Labour Plan deals with is your portable skills, whereby you are trained in a job that you can do outside the mining industry, which you don't necessarily have to stay within the industry. That's where your entrepreneurial activities can come in.
But are the mine unions going to essentially embrace that level of change? Or are they going to resist it because they want to keep the numbers as they are?
I think, Judge, there's two components to it. The upward mobility, it should not necessarily mean that we are agreeing to mechanization as a form of mining. Of course, all depends on the dialogue. As the NUM, we have always been open to dialogue in terms of how effective is a shift system, for example. But Judge, I think what is also lacking within the industry, there's a disjuncture between the corporate offices which are based in Denton and the operation within the Northern Cape. Right. That's one of the fundamental challenges that makes us say executives lack a will to transform.
Well, I'll get back to the location question, but I mean, if we go for a upgrading, will we not lose jobs? I mean, will we fewer jobs, more mechanized industry?
It depends. I mean, we've...
unless you grow your mining sector.
Well, I'll give you an example, because in AngloGold Ashanti, we're now in a program of mechanization. Workers and management have agreed that there are certain areas where it's unsafe to work, but there's a huge amount of gold that's left behind. And the only way to extract that is to look at mechanized methods of accessing that. It secures employment where otherwise those would not be mined anymore. So the notion that mechanization necessarily results in displacement of jobs is a misnomer. It doesn't always result in that. So an open-minded National Union of Mineworkers with whom we engaged and AMCU in that area enabled us to look at technological applications that we've seen in other operations of ours elsewhere in the world. And we've applied that, and they require different sets of skills. Now, you need to do something similar in other sectors. It addresses issues of productivity. It addresses issues of efficient production. It addresses, importantly, issues of safety.
But this only works if your change actually shows tangible, clear benefits for workers, that it addresses your inequality problem that you started off with.
It does. And to some extent, workers, established unions that we've been interacting with have understood that mining is a short-term undertaking. At some point, it's a finite resource. At some point, workers will lose jobs. Yeah. The social and labor plans are intended, among other issues, to accommodate that. So what do you do? I mean, South African gold mining is in decline. We were the largest gold producer, now we're number 9. We're not the largest gold producer. So in the context of a declining resource, how do you manage this industry in a way that enables us to have a multiplier effect in the economy? Where we lose jobs in mining, we create them elsewhere.
Isn't there a temptation when you're declining to squeeze the pips?
There absolutely is. And
that's when Luthando has got a point, hasn't he?
What we have to consider is where can we mine? And for example, the Labour Relations Act needs to allow mining to the flexibility so that we can mine further away, so that we can run different combinations of shifts. So because now remember that in the olden days you'd blast every day. Now you're blasting every 3 days. So if you can just blast every 2 days, you've got a 50% increase in productivity. Those are the kinds of things that the Labour Relations Act, for example, needs to be sufficiently flexible to allow us to be able to do things like that. So now we're talking about productivity. If you can increase productivity, if you can be sufficiently flexible where perhaps employees could share in the upside success of a mining operation.
Why haven't they been able to do up till now?
What haven't they been
Yeah.
able to do? For example, the shift, that example I gave about the shifts, it's quite rigid around what shifts you can have and what you can't have.
In the law.
You can go to the union and discuss with the union and say, look, can we, come to an arrangement as to how we can structure these shifts. And the union is able to agree and through a whole negotiation. But those are the kinds of things that we need flexibility on.
Do you accept that this industry, if it doesn't change, it's in trouble? You're going to lose lots more jobs.
That's inevitable, Judge. But the problem currently with industry is that all of these are not only done to save the industry itself, it's done to maximize profit. And it is not done in a holistically consultative process whereby all stakeholders are put on board and actually understand the outcomes. Because most of the time we dispute the facts in terms of how is this going to maximize the benefit, or whereby the benefit is actually shared by all. Most importantly, as we are members of unions, we are members of communities which are hosting these mines, which we need to derive benefit also from these communities.
Yes, sorry?
That's misplaced, Luthando. You know, in the law in this country, there is a provision for workers to establish workplace forums where management is able to come to you and say, this is how much we've made this year, and this is how much is gone to wages, this is how much goes to dividends, this is how much goes to all of this. But these are not established. But there are general statements that are being made that so much goes to maximization of profits and so much goes to, so much little goes to workers. In fact, investors in the mining industry in this country are saying that they're not getting their returns as companies under pressure of costs are unable to declare dividends. So you have a crisis where there is a crisis of investor confidence in the industry, which threatens the very survival of the industry, which threatens jobs.
Well, that raises the really fundamental question of how you actually deal with that and inequality and deal with the clear, legitimate complaints that workers have that they're just not getting sufficient share.
Exactly. You need to understand and agree that you have stakeholders, all of whom have legitimate claim to the asset and distribute it in a fair and transparent fashion. And that's what the workplace fora are about.
Well, I'm sorry that I've got to close this. I do apologize to all you. I tried to give you all time, but it's a nice way to close because, in fact, that's the point, isn't it? That the point is, how do you actually develop on an ongoing basis a mining sector that is viable, that in a sense does allow an investor the fair return, but at the same time addresses this problem of inequality and grinding poverty and rewards people who do dreadfully dangerous jobs in a manner which in a sense creates stability in the institutions and therefore promotes the economy in a broader sense. It's central, if you like, to our very constitutional framework. How we deal with it is something I'm afraid I don't think we've had sufficient debate about. This is a start. Hopefully we can continue this. Hopefully I can get you gentlemen back shortly and we can debate how do we achieve the balance. But you have already heard some of that debate. You can judge for yourself. Goodbye.